Hello and welcome to Wellness by Design today. I'm your host, Jane Hogan, the wellness engineer. And today I've got a new friend, Diana Lane. And I met Diana at a recent conference and we just hit it off. Diana, welcome to Wellness by Design.
Thanks, Jane. So excited to be here.
Well, I loved your energy and I love what you do. So I'm going to tell people a little bit about what you do. So you have a practice called Moon Medicine Healing Arts. How cool is that? It's a holistic and integrative center in Austin, Texas. And I love that you say you blend together like the woo and the acupuncture and just all these different integrative types of practices, which is really amazing and the way it should be, I think. So I know from reading your bio that you started off doing pre-med and you're heading into cardiology. You didn't take that path. So, Diana, how did you get on the path that you're on now?
It always starts with that journey of self and soul. When I was young, I was in the ballet industry. I had some really horrible habits. I was 16 years old with multiple eating disorders, thin as could be, and still hated my body. And I got to this point, I had gone to a belly dance show that one of my neighbors was putting on. And I looked at these women, just vital and beautiful and voluptuous. And I went, wow, okay, wake up call. So I got into nutrition to start, right? Okay, how can I heal my body naturally? How can I use foods to actually nourish myself and be healthy? And then I realized I wanted to help other people. Obviously, the nutritional field is kind of low hanging fruit, no pun intended, when it comes to the breadth of what we can provide in the medical world. So I said, okay, well, how do I actually create change? And of course, that would have been to go to the top. So I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to help the world by healing hearts. And I was in undergrad in my cardiac rehab internship, ready to go to UW in the middle of the application process. Wanted to go to Yale and Stanford because they're all feeder schools for each other. And I was probably about 3 weeks into this rehab program when I realized people were getting worse and not better. They basically told me to get people on the machines, make sure they were taking their prescriptions, take their vitals, and send them home. And I'd be like, but they just threw a McDonald's cup out on the way in. Like, can I not talk to them about this? And what about like they smell like booze and cigarettes? They just had a heart attack like 2 weeks ago. And again, they kind of like pat me on the head and we're like, meh, there are optional courses they can take if they want to, that's not really your job. And it just really hurt my heart to see this system that's supposed to be helping people in their recovery basically tell me that most of them would be back in 6 months. They'd be lucky if they made it 5 years. And I started realizing that there was not a lot of formative training to really support people in comprehensive care, in preventative care, right? And get
Mhm.
catching them before they're at this stage of this end of life approach. And so I say I jumped ship to the east side. I was like, I'm out. I would call my mom crying, like, "Boo, this isn't how I meant to serve." And I started looking into everything possible, Jane. I tell you, Ayurveda, naturopathy, chiropractic, osteopathy. How can I help? I actually went to Evergreen in the interim, right? And when I dashed UW, I went to Evergreen and took an integrative studies course there. And they're super fun because it's like this great hippie college. And they gave a huge overview of all these approaches. And when acupuncture came back into my world, it was like the heavens opened up and everything became crystal clear. And I realized so many parts of my life had been leading me down this path. I had had experiences as a younger child with an acupuncturist. My mom was into holistic medicine, and it was so obvious. So I like to say I'm a perfect blend of science and woo. I'm still a science mind at heart. I like the data. I like labs. I love understanding anatomy and physiology in the human body. And how do we work with energy? How do we work with frequency? How do we work with this whole body healing approach so that we can create something that's well care instead of the current system?
Mm. And you say woo, and I guess maybe you're talking about the energy stuff. But what we know now from science is that it's actually proven by science that we are energy. And so, what they were doing in traditional Chinese medicine and the acupuncture for thousands of years was right. So yeah, I love that. So tell me about your practice now. How do you like put all this together?
It's funny. I just want to touch on this concept of this scientific proof of things, right? Because even just, I think this week, I found an article where they had proven this interstitial space. There's actually a space that lines much of the body with fluids, and it's likened to what's called the san jiao in Chinese medicine, the three jiaos, the three waterways. And we're finding things like this all the time where science is backing things up. You can actually prove acupuncture points with CT scans. You can see the areas of less electromagnetic resistance. And chi and ATP, they are the same thing. This driving life force that actually is moving blood through the body. So I really love sharing that information with my patients. And my practice is really diverse. I feel so blessed to have 8 years supporting people on their journeys. I work with all types of different presentations. More recently, I've gotten deeply involved in an electro-acupuncture protocol called EAM. And this is really revolutionizing the game. I mean, we're talking working with deep seated autoimmune, very, very entrenched imbalances, chronic diseases, and working with re energizing and re electrifying the blood in a good way, right? Like blood is supposed to have an electrical charge and it's supposed to be a negative electrical charge on the outside. So we're working to infuse the body with what's called E Chi, also known as electrical chi, to do some deep terrain healing. This doctor, he's already an acupuncture doctor, and he's in the middle of his MD right now because he really wants to revolutionize the field. And I did a training with him earlier this year that has been game changing. I've seen epic results with my patients from long seated chronic illnesses like um, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, polymyalgia rheumatica, which like they don't really teach us about some of these like Western things in grad school because it's all pathogenesis, right? We're looking for the deficiencies, the balances and imbalances. So my practice is really comprehensive. We utilize a mind, body, soul approach. It's healing from the inside out. We work on lifestyle. We work on environment and surroundings. We work on diet. We work with supplements and nutrition. We really take a comprehensive look at what's working in their lives. We get rid of endocrine disruptors. We run lab testing and we talk. We actually talk. People feel so heard and seen, which is a miss in the
Oh,
Western
joy.
model. It's so sad, right? They're like, "Wow, this is the most comprehensive intake I've ever had." My first intake is I've never had a doctor talk to me this long about anything. Like, why? They're not looking at the whole picture, obviously. And it's really important that we take things from this kind of perspective because we are an amalgamation of our life, right? The colors we wear, the things we think, the foods we eat, the scents we surround ourselves, our environment, everything is really part of who we are. So we have to get down to the root. I say I'm a root branch practitioner. I can treat the things we see all day long, these symptoms, but if we're not getting down to the constitutional core of the imbalances, we're just treading water all day long and not creating life lasting change.
Oh, I love it. I love how you pulling all of that together. Um, so tell me a little bit more about this energy. So lots of times what I find is some people either work totally in energy, some people work totally in, like let's do the lab test, that, but you're pulling it all together. So so do you feel like this new approach that you're learning is going to replace anything else or that you're already doing? Is it all energy or do you really have to combine all of this when you want true healing to happen?
Yeah, it's really revolutionizing my practice over the last few months. Our calendars are color coded and my primary ones are purple, right? The highest healing frequency. But now I'm bringing in these EAM sessions, which are dark green, and I'm seeing this transition because of how prominent the results are. Now, even Einstein said the future of medicine is healing with frequency and light. So it's incredible because I can incorporate the electroacupuncture into the sound healing, into the guided meditations. I add in some extra points that are also supportive. So it's really an up level of the foundation that I've built, but is definitely transitioning what I'm offering because I'm finding that now we're a few months in, which is about the accumulative point for a lot of these chronic diseases, that people are getting longer lasting change,
Mm.
deeper change. And they're noticing, like, wow, like I've had more pain free days than I've had days that have been painful and hurting. And that's, patients I've been working with for years that were getting great results, but now the extension of the benefits are just insurmountable. It's been really incredible to watch this evolution of this practice. That's what I love about holistic medicine is it's a lifelong journey of learning. And I think that the foundation will remain the same. I'm still going to put crystals on people. We're still going to do things like this. But what I can offer is a little bit more vast than former offerings.
Mm. So is it like equipment that you touch on, like acupressure points or acupuncture points, or how does that work? Meridian? I guess they're meridian points.
We are meridians. Yeah, acupuncture points on meridians. That's great. Yeah. So, yes, and right. It's a very specific type of device that we use. Now, there are other e-stim devices out there, right? Some of you might be familiar with TENS units and things like that. There's also an old school style of e-stim where you just clamp on these little alligator clips and you use something like an Ito or a Pantheon machine. Now, those are not horrible, but they're not great. So, these are actually a very specifically calibrated machine that offers what's called Noget frequencies. Now, Noget frequencies are fine tuned and well researched frequencies that have very specific healing capacities. So, it's actually on acupuncture points, right? There's a very common one in the ear. It's actually on the right ear called right liver ear that helps with detox. And you use a point finder, it actually tests for areas of deficient energy where there is none. And you put a point directly in that energy center or that, epicenter where there is no energy. Then you attach, it's a circuit, right? So you would attach it to something like a blood electric or a blood energy point, and you create a circuit with one set. Then there's another set. So you create a blanket frequency. So you have 4 points that are connected to the eSTIM machine. It's about 20 to 30 minutes per treatment, and they can create whole body healing because the body knows electricity and energy. Everything, every cellular structure is atoms, particles, molecules, neutrons, protons. It's all energy. So
Yeah.
your body will send the stimulus and the current through the system as a whole to help it heal. And these specific frequencies are telling the body exactly what to do to help it heal.
Gosh, I love it. It's so interesting. I love the way it can, like, you're sensing the areas where there is no energy flowing and then, giving it some energy. It's really cool. I like that.
We'll have to get you out to Austin so you can come try it.
Oh, I want to. I next one go to Austin. So I'm going. Okay, so you combine the list, but I know that you also like do the lab tests. And so how does that factor into your practice?
Yeah, lab tests are great as guiding data. Because I'm a science mind, I want to know what's actually going on in the system. So when it comes to hormones or when it comes to digestive imbalances, it can be great to get actual data. It can drive our propensity to heal. Because when you see that you have a parasite, or when you see that you have bacterial overgrowth, or that your liver is not detoxifying estrogens, it's going to stimulate you to actually want to create the change. So, something like the GI map panel is one of my absolute hands down favorites. I run it for a lot of my patients. And what we find is that throughout the course of healing, if you follow the protocols and do the work, I've had many patients who will retest. And if you remove the name, they would look like two completely different people in their testing because they're actually getting these physiological changes. So, even CBC, right? Thyroid panels, CBC. Now, those are very helpful, right? Especially if you have Hashimoto's or thyroid imbalances. But a lot of times we find that most of these imbalances, rheumatoid arthritis, chronic sinus issues, even Hashimoto's, achy pain in joints can all be because of bacterial imbalances in the system. So I typically start with the GI map panel because it is my favorite and most comprehensive panel to give us data and guide us. Do we need to cleanse parasites? How much bacterial overgrowth and dysbiosis do you have? Do we have to go after H. pylori or E. coli? And not to say that it is like a 1 billion parasites are tricky, right? It's not a perfect test because parasites can hide. So
Yeah.
we often use biofilm disruptors, right, to make sure that we're kind of ferreting out some of the bacteria that can be hiding in the system. And parasites have active bloom phases, right? So oftentimes we will take a comprehensive blanket approach to still guide the body to heal with supplemental support. And the cool thing about this electroacupuncture is that it's actually healing the terrain. So in this peer reviewed article that Dr. Steiner put out, he is following four different patients throughout the course of a 4 session series. And he's actually showing that by re energizing the blood will go and heal and clean up the interstitial space, clear out the plasma pathogens and parasites just because it's repolarized. The neutrophils light up. There's actually neutrophils that like look like little smiley faces and they're out there like doing their job, eating pathogens. And it's just really cool to see that scientific data. So it's nice to have the data. We still go out into the esoteric realms, but we find that fusion to be the most viable approach to whole body healing.
There's something about people seeing the data that, like you said, it motivates them and they, even though they might be feeling better, when they see those numbers changing, it does make a difference. It's funny, I had a question in my membership today about GI tests and about parasites and so on. I remember hearing, so I've done work with I'm certified facilitator for the energy codes, Dr. Sue Morter's work. And I remember one time her saying that when we can get the energy right in the body, then those pathogens just kind of don't survive. Do you see that with the work that you're doing? It's kind
I
of what
mean,
you were
that's
saying.
Yeah, that's literally this EAM in a nutshell is that when we get the energy right, when we repolarize the blood, wake those neutrophils up, they just do their job. I mean, and we're talking, so I can't wait till his dissertation is out. He's in the middle of his MD, but Dr. Steiner, literally 4 sessions showing the interstitial space like full of bacteria and like plasma proteins from parasites and things like that, and then the body actually cleaning it up just from re-energizing and resetting the energy. He also does pulse oxygenation. He does HRV. He does blood pressure. He does resting heart rate and marked improvements in each and every one of those cofactors. So I really think this is the future of medicine. I'm excited to see it progress.
Oh my gosh, it is so exciting. I love that. So, what do you think causes the these imbalances to happen in like right in the beginning? Like I probably interviewed like hundreds of people now on chronic pain specifically, but they are most everyone says it's the root cause is stress. So it's stress, thoughts create the chemistry in the body and then we get inflammation leading to pain kind of thing. Would you say it kind of comes back to that? And if it does come back to stress being a root cause, how do you ensure that the person is not going to slip back into that again?
I agree to a point on this. Now,
Okay.
stress is a really interesting concept because if you think back about some of these experiments they've done where like they took two plants and they grew them in the exact same conditions, right? Same lighting, same soil, same watering schedule, more or less. But then they take one of the plants and they just stress it a little bit less water. Maybe they skip a couple feedings. They actually find that that plant becomes more resilient, produces more fruit because the pressure helps it to grow a little bit more abundantly, right? So I think in some ways, stress can be beneficial. Like
Yeah.
even they say, what is it? Even diamonds take pressure to be made,
Right.
right? That stress can create a form of resilience. It is the accumulation. I think
Right.
it's the accumulation of everything, right? Accumulation of endocrine disruptors, accumulation of poor diet, accumulation of chronic stress over time without rebalancing the nervous system. So
Mm.
I would say even deeper than stress is this accumulative factor, right? You're either helping or harming your system as a whole. And some of these things can help us thrive and survive and be more resilient. But if you are not finding positive outlets or not balancing your stress with meditation or walking or outlets, like I recommend scream therapy to my patients. Sometimes I'm like, go out in the woods and just have a moment or like get in a pillow and just like allow yourself to release these energies because they're all here to serve us for a reason, even anger, even frustration, which is an expression of the liver, right? The liver is the governor, it's what deals with stress in our body, along with the spleen, the great worrier of our system. And we have to learn how to adapt and work with stress and to make it so that it's not this accumulative detriment over time.
Yeah, it's our perception and how we deal with it. I like what you talked about there, the accumulation, because that's how I like my theory is as we get older, we get all these things accumulating. That's why we tend to see a lot of these things manifesting as we age. And that you mentioned about the hormesis, that hermetic kind of stress where a little bit of stress makes the army stronger kind of thing. And I see that. And we do like I do cold therapy, right? I jump in the river here in Newfoundland in the winter. And that is stress, but it's a I find for me a beneficial stress. So yeah, there's something to be said. Fasting, even, right? That's a type of stress, but there's a benefit to it. Okay, so you're still combining all of these. So can people do any of this on their own, or do they have to come into a clinic and get this workup done?
Yeah, so I think it's super important to have a guide and or a healing team on this journey. Part of the evolution of my practice is being able to help more people outside of just my hometown, right? I love being one-on-one with people. I love being able to be hands-on, and there's so much work that can be done virtually as well. So these testings and these supplement protocols and these lifestyle modifications, I call it holistic lifestyle remodeling, can also be done virtually and in the safety of your own town and the support of your own local community. So I like to kind of create more of a holistic concierge service where if you're in Austin, great, I can be of service to you. But if you live outside of this city or state, there's a lot I can also do. And if you don't already have guides on your journey, I can support you in finding someone who's going to fit those needs and refer you to practitioners who get it and who take these comprehensive whole body approaches. So it goes far beyond. I'm actually in the middle of working on a new fertility offer to help women around the world conceive. And so it's expanding, right? This is the next chapter as we embark on what's next in the holistic medicine field.
Really exciting. So let's talk a little bit about foods, because our food forms the building blocks of us. So how big a role do foods play in your practice?
Yeah, I work a lot with the nutritional component and those interventions and modifications for people's lives. I mean, we literally are what we eat. And this is the foundation. Like our mouth to gut health is the core of everything. And they're finding more and more that it's this bacterial imbalance in our GI systems that is the biggest detriment to people long term when it comes to illness and disease. So we talk a lot about all the nerdy things. I mean, obviously, there's the basics: gluten, sugar, aspartame, right? I tell people irreversible cellular brain damage, and they're like, okay, I won't drink or eat that anymore. I'm like, you're better off doing real sugar. I mean, limit the real sugar too, but the aspartame is real bad. And then we talk about the deeper components like glyphosates and GMOs, right?
Yeah.
In the US, it's the worst because it's like my patients will go overseas, like to Europe. I'm like, okay, you can have a little bit of gluten out there. Take your enzymes with you, but you can enjoy things out there in these other countries because they don't use the same pesticides and chemical components. Things are not as prominently GMO or covered in glyphosate out there. And most of them can go and eat pastry or pastas in Italy and not have any problems with it. So
I get
it's about balance, right? Right? It's about balance and moderation. So I try to teach people about intuitive eating, having awareness, right? We're human. Like I went to New York to see my father recently, and you better believe I ate a New York bagel. And they delicious. Now, I knew I was probably gonna pay for it a little bit. I did feel a little bit funky, but it wasn't really too bad, I think, because we picked some really high quality places, and I took a bunch of enzymes, right? So it's like we're human, we still wanna live a little, but there's healthy alternatives, right? Especially when it comes to gluten. Canyon Bakehouse and Glutino English muffins, like, we have no excuses to be eating poorly anymore because it's not like 15 years ago when I was diagnosed gluten sensitive, where things were a little cardboard like, and they've come a really long way when it comes to this. So, taking a comprehensive approach, high quality grass fed free range meats, organic fruits and vegetables, complex carbs, minimizing grains. Even grains, I used to be like a brown rice person, thinking that it was healthier for me. Nope, white rice is better. Make sure it's organic, right? These little things we learn along the way. Grass fed butter, minimal dairy, and making sure that when you do, it's organic and maybe going for the goat and sheep milk instead if you're not lactose intolerant, right? So everybody's different. There is no one size fits all answer, but there are some general guidelines. And sorry for my vegetarian and vegan friends out there. I am a proponent. I have converted so many people back to a more paleo and omnivorous diet because they're sick. They're some of my sickest patients. They're not feeling well. I have women who are not getting their cycle. Their hair is falling out. They can't figure out why they have brain fog and fatigue all the time. And I'm like, well, have you thought about maybe trying some wild caught salmon? I've had people say it feels like their brain turns back on and they're like, wow. And then they eat one steak and they're like, I actually ate two this week, and it really changes things. You'll see this, I mean, across the board. There's a lot of celebrities who have changed their minds on their former approach at nutrition, the vegan and vegetarian diets. And I still support eating a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits, and things like that. But if you can find regenerative farmers and just really listen to your body and how it feels to eat these high quality proteins, please do so, right? I mean, it can be very, very life-changing, and if we're talking about the moral component, I love animals too. I am a sucker for animals, and agricultural lands actually kill off so many animals because they're clear-cutting forests and displacing the wildlife, whereas farmlands are like, Wisconsin grasslands where there's not really anything growing out there anyway. That's kind of my spiel on that. Nutrition is everything. Don't forget to look at your oral health, right? If you have amalgams, metal, mercury, unhealed cavitations, root canals, those are all a source of disease as well and a cofactor in nutritional and gut health as well.
Mm. So much to consider, right? When you start at the mouth, right, and go all the way. Um, I know that you've got a gift for people that will have the link there, and it's let's talk about it. You tell us about it.
Yeah, so some of the components I've been really researching lately are things like lectins and oxalates, right? I love beans and I love vegetables and beets. Like, oh my God, I love beets so much. And as I find out some of these foods can be contributing to our inflammation and our pain, I start digging deeper, right? So, oxalates is a really hot topic right now. For those of you that have pain, inflammation, kidney stones, oxalic acid is found in a lot of legumes and leafy greens and vegetables. And this could be a cofactor to imbalances, pain, and definitely kidney stones in your body because it can accumulate calcium. So, my gift to the community is an oxalates food chart. Makes it pretty easy. It's the low oxalates, the high oxalates. It's just a guide. I think there's about 20 or so on each side that can help foster some better decisions or that you can try an elimination diet with, right? Try avoiding these high oxalate foods, and if you do have kidney stones or arthritic pain, it would be worthwhile to try these out.
Mhm. And in your experience, how long would someone have to eliminate these from their diet to start noticing a difference?
Well, here's the thing is not everybody is affected by oxalates,
Yeah.
lectins, so forth and so on. For the bare minimum, what I recommend for elimination is if you're going to like do a regular elimination diet, say you're trying to find out if almonds affect you, right? Like almonds really affect me. I'm an O blood type that plays a role in this. And I was like, no, I was like, almonds are healthy. I love almonds. What are you talking about? This is like one of my snack foods. And someone said, well, how do you feel? And I said, well, I mean, yeah, I've got some things that I deal with, maybe a little bit of anxiety. And they were like, well, try it. So I kicked almonds out of my life for 3 weeks, 3 whole weeks. And then when I ate them again, I ate only almonds. And wouldn't you know, I feel these palpitations. There's like a rushing sensation inside of me, and it could be very subclinical. Like you might not even notice this underlying anxiety or these underlying sensations. But then when you reintroduce these foods, it's like, oh, whoa, that really affects me. So 3 weeks is kind of like the minimum for an elimination diet. Honestly, though, with certain things like gluten, for example, we're talking 3 to 6 months before you really get the whole detrimental effect out of your system.
Mhm.
And if you are dealing with these problems, such as kidney stones, you probably want to avoid high oxalate foods just in general. Um, I know that makes it a little bit more challenging. I still enjoy my beets sometimes. I don't have kidney stones, but I want to prevent them. So, I just really pay attention to how I feel. 3 weeks minimum, 6 months is a little more ideal. This is a lifelong journey, right? We're
Mhm.
talking about longevity. So, we're just always working on reducing the detrimental impact and just paying attention to how those foods feel when you eat them.
You made a really good point there that sometimes it's you may not even notice that you're feeling better. It's when you reintroduce that you notice I don't feel so good. I've had that with some of my clients as well, when they like eliminate something they eat every single day. Like for I'm thinking of this one example, yogurt. She had yogurt every single day, and so we did the elimination. And when she pulled it back in, she felt nauseous, and this was something that she had eaten every single day. So really interesting. For me, I did the elimination of gluten, dairy, and sugar, like cold turkey all at once. And I started noticing with the joint pain that I had a significant improvement in just 5 days. So sometimes it can be really quick that people feel that, right? So have you seen that as well?
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. It kind of comes back to that stress factor we were talking about, right? The body gets used to just kind of shoving down the stimulus and dealing with these impactful things that we're eating every day. And oftentimes, I do see when we remove them, it can be life changing. I have a patient, a gentleman in his 70s. He's one of my psoriatic arthritis and osteoarthritis patients. And he had like this esophageal tightening every time he was eating things. And we started removing the gluten, and chicken also does it for him for some reason. Must be some kind of allergy, right? And he noticed changes pretty immediately. And it's just been, steady progress from there. So can definitely be helpful to just really listen to your body. I mean, gluten, dairy, and sugar, those are like the trifecta. To remove those, I think a lot of people would feel significant improvement in their lives if they were able to remove those from their diet.
I know. I always say to people, just try it for like start off with a week, and because I know that they'll feel better, and then that will motivate them to go a little bit further, as you said. Well, hopefully, gluten, dairy, and sugar kind of um, lifestyle, as you said, right? Um, okay, so I always have one question that I ask my guests, and that is this show is all about living intentionally and empowering people. And I love the baby steps. So, Diana, do you have a baby step that you would recommend that someone would take like today to begin initiating healing in their body?
I always say to get back to the basics. We know what the foundation is: high quality food, non fluoridated spring water, deep, restful, dark, quiet sleep, right? No listening to TVs while you're trying to sleep. Breathe more, move more, and make sure you feel happy in your environment, right? Like you'll see, I have a lot of pinks and purples and things that just feel really good. So, my one piece of advice, which I know is like a fragment of other pieces of advice, is just get back to the basics. Build a strong foundation, and everything else will be built in strength upon that.
Such great advice, because some people think I need to go see this person to fix me, and they haven't even tried to do things themselves. So I love that you said that. It's just okay. Let's get back to base. We know we need to get to bed, and not stay up all night or watch screens and drinking water and the food. Okay. So that's really, really good. All right. So where is the best place for people to find out more about your work and follow you?
Yeah, the best places to find me are my website, moonmedicinemagic.com. You can also find me the same on Instagram or Diana Lane on Facebook. Just shoot me a message that you saw me with Jane Hogan. Otherwise, I might not accept the friend request if it's completely random. If I see we have mutuals, I'll go for it. But those are the best three places to find me.
Oh, this has been so good, Diana. Thank you so much. We'll have all those links, by the way, in the show notes. So people will be able to find you. They'll be able to get this oxalate list that you've made. That's super helpful. So, Diane, thank you so much for being here today and being a guest on Wellness by Design.
Honored to share, Jane. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
And thank you also. Like, you're just doing such great work in the world, and you're so um, encompassing of so many different modalities. And I just love your passion is really coming from your heart. So, thank you for that work that you're doing.
Likewise, I'm so glad our paths crossed.
Me too. Me too. And to everyone watching or listening today, I know you've got some great things out of this. And please continue on your healing journey and understand how much power you have, like doing those basic things that Diana mentioned. Just start there, and then maybe you can find out if you need to go further. But you might find that alone is enough. All right. So thanks very much for being here. We'll see you again next week.